Hey, it's Jeff Cannata with another NLB mini. I got back this week from PAX East in Boston, where I got to see a bunch of games. Hopefully you're listening to DLC on 5x5, my video game show with Christian Spicer, 5x5.tv/DLC, where I talked about a lot of the games that I got to see. But I was using these NLB minis yesterday and today to give you a little bit of a deeper explanation of some of the marquee games. Now, I think the biggest standout game that I saw from PAX East was CapyGames Below, and that's getting a lot of buzz now because it was sort of the first time we really saw gameplay. I got hands-on with the game, and I wanted to explain exactly my experience so maybe you can get a better understanding of just how unique and interesting this game is. It definitely derives a lot of its DNA from Legend of Zelda and Dark Souls. They're very upfront. The CapyGames guys are very upfront about being inspired by those two titles. And like a lot of the games that are becoming very popular these days in the Dark Souls vein, Below does not hold your hand. You are placed in this world. You start the game. I'll tell you exactly what happens. So I'm holding the controller. I've got my little guy, tiny speck of a man, on this giant canvas of a world. You wash up on a beach, I think, if I can remember correctly, and you have a shield and you have a sword. One button slashes your sword, another button holds your shield, much like a top-down Zelda game, and you can use one of the sticks to rotate around when you have your shield, so you can rotate your shield to all directions. You can thrust forward with your sword using a combination of pressing the button and moving in a direction. You've got a button that opens up an inventory, so all the stuff that you pick up in the world, because there is crafting, there is discovery that way. And you have a button that holds your lantern out in front of you. And the lantern mechanic is very interesting. So you can hold your sword and shield like you would in any top-down Zelda-like game, but putting your sword and shield away, sheathing your sword, putting your sword on your back is very important in this game. I think much more important in this game than in any other game I've played, because it really represents a difference in your attention. So if you have your sword and shield out, your character's attention is on battle, and he is less likely to be aware of his surroundings. So that is represented by having certain information on the screen dulled. So if you walk up to something you would see clues, you would see maybe even an icon of something that you could pick up. You might not see it if your sword and shield are out because you're in the battle mode. So putting those things away is very important in this game. You'll walk up to a glowing bit on the ground that seems to be interesting, and when you walk up to it with your sword and shield away, you might see an icon showing that it's an item that you can pick up and put in your inventory. Or you might see some sort of pattern or scrapings on the wall that sort of give you a clue as to what has happened here before, or something that you might be able to do to affect the environment that you would not have seen if your sword and shield were out. And then the lantern is even another layer of attention, because if you pull the lantern out, then you see even more detail in the environment, but it leaves you more vulnerable to bad guys. And vulnerable is a really great word to use with Below, because your guy is vulnerable at every stage. I started on the beach and immediately went to this mountain and started climbing this mountain. Handholds, climbing. And it took a long time. It was slow going. This game is a game that takes its time, that is not in a hurry, that pacing is very deliberate. So I'm climbing up this mountain for several screens, finally get to the top of the mountain and walk in. Now as the name suggests, the whole journey of Below is to go down into this mountain, deeper and deeper. And as you go down layers and layers further into the mountain, the enemies get harder, the items that you can pick up get more scarce, supplies are harder to come by, it gets more and more difficult. So each screen, like in a Zelda game, you might find a trap door to go down to get deeper, or you might find another way to exit left or right, but each screen is self-contained and doesn't scroll. Okay, so climb to the top of the mountain, start going down. the graphics are really beautiful. Again, you're this tiny character on this really zoomed out giant view of your surroundings. You feel small, you feel insignificant. I found a little campfire that I was able to light that illuminated the area. I encountered a couple of bad guys that were these kind of red, glowing, almost firefly-looking creatures that I was able to slash. But if one hit me, my character started to bleed out, and I would leave little puddles of blood as I walked. And if I stood in one place, the puddle of blood would start to spread, indicating to me that I was in a bad way. My little heart container started to shrink. This is a game that has no text in it whatsoever. You're not given any information by tooltip. There's no signposts telling you bits. You have to discover it all. You have to learn by observing and looking at behavior and dying over and over. It's one of those kinds of games like Dark Souls. So as I started to bleed out, I realized I better take a potion or I was going to die. So I did have a couple of potions in my inventory. I took those. I stopped bleeding. But I was also shown by the developer that I could stop bleeding by walking over to my campfire, taking out my sword, sticking it in, heating it up, and then pressing it to the wound. And all that was animated with the little guy pressing it to his arm to stop the bleeding, which the designer called Ramboing. Super cool. So I was dealing with these monsters. There's traps everywhere. There was a trap like in Zelda where you would walk by something and an arrow would shoot at you, so you had to turn and present your shield in the right direction and sort of walk in parallel to that so that it would hit the shield and not you. There was a spike trap. And again, if you walked up to these traps and you held out your lantern, it showed you information around it, showed you tracks around, so you could kind of identify what kind of trap it was, how to deal with it in a more effective way. At one point, I encountered a sort of crab-like creature, again, glowing red, that had its own shield and was presenting a really difficult battle for me. And I managed to get it to run at me over the top of a spike trap, killing it instantly. It was so satisfying and so exciting. And it's, again, one of these games that are becoming more popular now, where even the small enemies get your pulse pounding because they are genuinely dangerous to your character. There's no easy fight. Every fight is tension-filled. Every fight is a potential death. Every fight in this game can start you bleeding out, so you have to really be prepared. I was able to collect grass from certain areas that I might be able to use in crafting at a certain time. I was able to find little crystals and pick apart parts of the environment and take them into my pack. There will definitely be combining of items in this game, I was told, so I didn't get to try any of that. It was disabled in this demo, but I'm excited to see that this game is really about exploring the environment, collecting what you can collect, figuring out how to create certain advantageous materials from the environment. It was really striking. Just the visuals, the music was so interesting and striking. I died probably 5 times in the short span of my 20-minute demo, but so this game, it will be brutal, and it will be a learn by death kind of situation. And you come back not as the same character. You don't have multiple lives. You come back as a new guy wandering down into the below the mountain, and you'll have a different outfit from each death, perhaps. And you can find the corpse of your old body and scavenge it for items. What else happened? It was a really experiential kind of mood game. You know, this was a game where things are slow. You approach things from with caution, and you're not running through and slashing everything. I was looking in every nook and cranny and trying to discover what little information I could glean from the environment to try to survive a little longer. And I love that level of exploration in video games. I love the fact that each of these screens is going to be procedurally generated, so there's not going to be a set way to go about finding things. It's going to be about my experience in this world. They hinted at some multiplayer, perhaps, which I certainly hope is included in this game. I think that might be a really, really strong feature, because I will want to have some company in these scary environments. And it seems to be a really deep, interesting world. Deep, I guess, pun intended. Interesting world to investigate in this game. I I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to see more. I hope you can't wait to see more of this YouTube channel, and you'll like and subscribe and tune in tomorrow for more NLB minis.